Khary's Kitchen, powered by Food Hall, Grocery Made Greater, Ibis, a tradition of excellence, Caribbean flavors. In the heart of every kitchen, Lotus, the confidence to create. Correga Garden Supplies, Good and Natural. Indie, spice up your life, distributed by Edward B.B. Harry. Champion, always a winner, distributed by Edward B.B. Harry. Lion, the power behind our great taste traditions. Excellence Stores Limited. Live, create, do.
You know how they say, waste not, want not. And I know people are accustomed to their chicken leg, chicken breast, but the gizzards and the liver part of the chicken you could use too. So we don't waste nothing here. And I can show you some interesting ways in which you could use these parts other people tend to throw away. Morning.
Morning.
Morning. So yeah, I just wanted to get some chicken gizzards today because I have some interesting recipes that I want to use it for. And I hear you use the man. Okay, nice. Yeah? So let me get one of these packages from you. Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, appreciate it. Blessings on. Wagyu beef sausages. Serious. Cucumbers already. I can take a try too. Yeah. How much you selling them?
$8 for one?
Yeah, I'll take two, please. Thank you. Now that I have everything I need, it's time to head to the kitchen to start cooking. So we're here back in the kitchen after getting all our fresh ingredients from the Namdevco Farmers Market. And today what we're making is a chicken gizzard hash. And don't worry, hash is just a fancy name for breakfast potatoes. So of course you have our chicken gizzard, which we're gonna dice in a while, potatoes, and then we have a lot of flavoring ingredients we're gonna add to that because we're all about flavor. So what we wanna do first is cut all the vegetables on the board first, then we can clean up the board and add our chicken and meat and anything else that is protein based, you want to do that after because safety first and sanitation. So we're going to start with the potatoes, which we're going to dice. So you want to square off your edges so you have a flat surface to work with. And what we're going to do with this is make, let's say, about a medium dice, and that will give us a nice size. So we could save these for later, maybe make fries. Again, waste not, want not. And what you want to start with is some slices here. Try as best as possible to make them even. I know some of you probably watching and saying like, look how much of this we're going to waste, but trust me, we're not going to waste it. Notice I also kept the skin on the potatoes because there's a lot of nutrition in that skin and we don't want to lose that because that would also be a waste, and we're trying to show how you could minimize waste as much as possible and use things that some people would otherwise throw away. So now that we have all our slices together, we want to work smart, but we also want to work safe. All right, so we want to make sure everything is within arm's reach, and you're going to duplicate all your actions because that way you could work a little bit faster. So I have all these potatoes stacked here, and again, even cuts as much as possible. Because of the odd shape, you want to deal with them separately because they wouldn't be the same nice dice as this one over here. So you could use them differently. Potato is actually one of my favorite carbs or starches because there are so many things you could do with it and so many interesting ways in which you could apply it, even to thicken things, or there's also a chef's trick. If you put too much salt in something like a soup or a sauce, you could actually just put a piece of potato in there and that would absorb the salt, and that will help you out if you over salted something. So I'm taking out the seeds here because I don't want to have to bite into those seeds when I'm eating my hash later on. So I'm just taking the seeds out, but it's based on preference. If you don't want to go through the trouble of taking out the seeds, it's no big deal. And keep a clean scene. And these, you want these a rough chop. You know, it's a homey dish, it's a comfort dish. So you don't have to be overly technical on the pimentos here. So you're gonna get some fresh parsley and some fresh thyme. That's gonna go to season the gizzard itself. Well, the parsley is actually for garnish at the end because again, you eat with your eyes first. So you wanna make sure that whatever you do at the end looks attractive, tastes good as well. So with parsley, you don't want to keep the stems for this purpose. There are other uses for parsley stems, but we don't have use for it for this recipe right here. And a trick I learned in culinary school, to cut parsley finely, to shave it finely, bunch it up like this in your hands. And from there, keep the pressure on it. That way, you wouldn't have parsley springing all over your cutting board. Just keep the knife against it, again, and the knife against your knuckles. And you get fine shavings from your first run instead of having to chop, chop, chop. All right, so now that all our vegetables are cut, we are gonna deal with the unlikely star of the show, which is the chicken gizzard. And we're gonna dice that really small because we want bite-sized pieces. We don't want to be trying to chomp into some big chunks of gizzard. So this is separated into thirds. And what we wanna do is just separate them where they have a natural separation already. And that way we could work with the natural flow and the grain of it. So we'll duplicate and do all one time. So there's a silver membrane on the outside of it, which makes it a little tricky to cut sometimes. But just, again, with a sharp knife, you could work safely and you could get it to do what you want it to do. So now it's time to season our gizzard because flavor is the most important thing in almost any meal. And not just any seasoning, but Caribbean flavors, green seasoning. Why I like Caribbean flavors? Because all the flavors are very fresh and very potent. And you don't need too much. Just go in there with your hands. Make sure everybody gets a little layer of it. And you want to let that marinate. I'm making some mess. That's all right. A little mess in the kitchen happens. All right, so that's good to go there. And you let that marinate. Give yourself at least 20 minutes. The longer the better, of course. All right, so we have all our ingredients prepped now, so it's time to cook. Flame is going, so you know what time it is. So on a medium-high heat, you want to go with that. You're gonna add our lotus oil. The first thing you want to get in is your gizzards. So you hear that sizzle? That's what we're looking for. Now we have to do this in batches. Very nice non-stick pan, a Berlinger House non-stick pan from our friends at Excellent Stores. You don't want to use anything metal in this to damage the surface, so let's use a wooden spatula. And again, on a medium-high heat, this is going really well. And these are just about ready, so I can add my potatoes. Now again, the size is important, and that's why we cut them to a nice manageable size so that it can cook through quickly enough. And because we want to trap that heat inside and speed up that cooking process, let's just add our cover. Oh yeah, and we look ready for the onions, the garlic. And what we want to do, again, we're going in batches. So we're just going to add about half of this and save some for the next batch. Same thing with the garlic. I mean, some people will say you could never have too much garlic. I'm a big fan of garlic myself. And again, we want that flavor to go in there. And we are seeing exactly what we want to see. I really like the heat distribution on this pan. Seems to be working well. I see some crisp on the gizzards already. Now we're gonna add some more flavor is we're gonna go in with some spices. Put this somewhere. We'll start with some amchar masala. That will add some smokiness and some earthiness to the flavor profile. You can use it to your heart's content. With some black pepper and some smoked paprika. So we all know black pepper. Again, use it sparingly because a little too much and it does tend to burn. The smoked paprika now, one of my favorite spices. And that adds smokiness, it adds that kind of floral element to it. And we want everything to mix in well. Of course, at this point, you want to go in with some salt. Because salt is the basis of flavor for many things. Everything is now getting the color, the smell, the texture that we're looking for. And I like to add my pimentos close to the end because I want it to have some bite and I want that flavor to go through without it being killed. Sometimes when you add pimentos too early, the flavor just tends to dissipate. And that bright green color really brightens up the pot. All right, so we're gonna let this cook for a few minutes. When that is done, it's time to plate and try this bad boy. All right, and let me check this out. And it is ready to go. Look at that. So it's time to plate. You just want a little bit. And when you're plating, you want to build some height, you want to build some dimension. So one, you don't want to go too heavy. I mean, I know we tend to share heavy in this country. You know, we're trying to make things look a little pretty as well. So one thing you want to do is build height. I don't need this fire anymore. And finally, we want to garnish. So we garnish with some chopped parsley and we have some thyme. And there we have it, guys, our chicken gizzard hash. Let me dive into this one and let me tell you the verdict. That's what we're talking about. So while I go and prepare the next half of this one, coming up next is Chef School, where you can learn something.
Sir,
This is my first time trying gizzard with that jeera masala.
and look how you plate in your hand.
It is tasting good, guys.
Welcome to Chef School, and today in Chef School we're going to learn how to mellow the flavor of liver a little bit. Because while liver is good for many things, it's not too good on the taste bud for some people. So we're going to learn how to make the flavor come down from there. So what we have today, it's lime and water, and there are two methods to do this. You can do this with milk or with lime water, and the longer you leave the liver in the lime water or the milk, is the more that metallic taste will, you know, just dissipate a little bit and make it a little easier on your taste buds. So we have some water here ready and we're gonna squeeze some lime into it. I don't want the seeds in there, that's why I'm using this strainer. You want enough lime in there so that it has enough of that lime flavor to mellow that liver flavor. And the liver goes right in. And you just want to make sure you mix it in well. Yep, so just make sure you mix it well and then just leave it alone. Again, the longer you leave it, the more that flavor mellows out, so you don't get that metallic, livery kind of taste. Up next, I'm going to show you how I'm going to use this liver in Chef'd Up. Welcome to Chef'd Up, and today we're going to learn how to make chicken liver pate, and that is going to be served on a baguette. The baguette is going to take the most time, so that's the first thing we're going to tackle and get that out of the way. So what we're going to need is some flour. I have 2 cups over here, some yeast, some salt, and some water. Simple ingredients, And then, of course, some dusting flour for when we have to roll it out a little bit later on. So what you want to do first and foremost is get your yeast into your flour. And this is just one standard pack of yeast. And today I'm using Ibis all-purpose flour for my baguette. And you just want to get the yeast in there, make sure it's well distributed. You don't want to put the salt just yet. You want to get the water in there. And I'm using 2/3 cup of water. And a chef's tip is that you're going to use a fork to start combining your dough and mixing your dough together so that your hands don't get all sticky and dirty. The fork does that part because it's easier to just wipe off the fork afterward. If you need to add more water, just add a little at a time. Some people probably wondering why I didn't start with putting the yeast in the water. Well, this is just the way you make baguette. You start off with all the ingredients together. Why I'm separating the salt is because salt and yeast don't mix well. So you want to put the salt afterward, and you just sprinkle it in there and then you work it into your dough. But again, not too much because salt will kill the yeast. At this point, if you found you've put too little water, you could always wet your hands a little bit and then work it in there little by little. All right, so at this point, I'll transfer this to my clean work surface. And that way, I can start doing this by hand. And you want to make sure and stretch your dough. You don't want your dough to be underworked because you're trying to form what is called gluten, which is a type of protein that you find in wheat flour. And you want to make sure that the gluten is formed well, because that ensures that you have a good structure for your bread, that it wouldn't have the holes and stuff after it ferments. That would be a nice solid sponge. So, same mixing bowl I used before. You want to put a little bit of oil on the bottom. And you're going to rest your dough in there. Then you're going to moisten the outside of the dough with some oil as well. From that, we're going to cover it down with a kitchen towel or with some plastic wrap, and you're going to let that rest for about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the temperature of your room. Why are we covering it? Because we don't want it to lose moisture. So set that aside, let it rest, and we can start working on the liver from there. So now that the dough is resting, we could handle something else. So I'm just going to get this out of the way because now it's time to tackle the liver. So we have a pan going, and in that pan, we're going to get some butter. And when that melts, we're going to add the liver to that, some onions, some garlic, some thyme, because we really want to get some flavor in our liver for the chicken liver pate, right? So the butter is melting here and the liver goes in. Nice hot pan, but not too hot because butter burns easily, so you want to make sure you measure that heat. So what I know, some people like to toss the pan and stuff like that. In this case, leave it alone, let it sit. It's going to go a little bit slow because you want gentle heat to go through your liver and not a harsh heat to burn the butter and make your liver tough. At this point, we could also add some flavoring ingredients. So we're going to start off with some onions that we have diced here. Followed by some garlic. And I'm a big fan of garlic. And then some thyme, fresh thyme. So we could all let this all marry together. And we'll adjust the seasoning with salt in a little while. But for now, we're gonna cover it down. All right, we're gonna see how far this has gotten. And it looks pretty good to me. So at this point, we want to season it with some salt. You can always adjust later on if you need to. Mix that in well. And just getting all these aromas in here. And we're also going to hit it with some brandy, because this is where a lot of the flavor in this pate comes from. And this looks like we're ready to go, so we'll actually take this off the heat. This will cool, and then it'll go in the food processor. Now, we're gonna tackle the pickled onions, because that's gonna be our garnish later on. So for the pickled onions, we're gonna need onions, obviously, some sugar, because it's a sweet pickle, and vinegar. To that we're gonna add some salt, and we're gonna put that in a pot. So we could dissolve the sugar and the salt in the vinegar. Then that hot liquid will go into the onions. All right, so we're gonna wait for this to come to a boil so that sugar and salt dissolves. So we're gonna take a short break and come right back. Some baguette, and this is where the work comes in, because to form this gluten, you have to really rough up the dough. And there's no shortcut for this one, unless you have a mixer where you don't have to do it by hand. But I don't know, I just find there's something special about doing it yourself by hand. Right, I'm seeing exactly what I want here. And what I'm going to do is pour this hot liquid into the onions, and that will help it denature and speed up the pickling process. Now we're just going to leave that alone. I'm going to check on my baguette dough. So I'm seeing exactly what I want. I give it a gentle poke and the indentation doesn't spring back immediately, so I know the dough is ready. Just time to punch it down. Just let those gases release. And I'm gonna go again on my work surface, and this is actually exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna knead this now, and I want you to see what they're doing. So let me get this out of the way. You can do this with a rolling pin, you can do it by hand. You know what? I started it by hand, but I want a more even consistency, so I'm gonna grab my rolling pin. So you're gonna roll from corner diagonally down to the next corner, and so you go in the opposite direction as well. And that will give you a rectangular shape. An important part of the roll is ensuring that the thickness of the dough is as even as possible throughout. But it's a very forgiving dough, so if you don't get it, and the first time you can roll it out again and just give yourself a little more grace, I guess. You pinch the ends and tuck it underneath. And this seam on the underside, you want to pinch it as well, because this will tend to unravel, and you don't want that for your baguette. Give it a roll to lengthen it. And this part is a little bit tricky for some people, because what you want is for this entire thing to be consistent. If your end's unraveling, you could pinch it again and just tuck it in. And just work with the dough. It will fight you sometimes, but as long as you don't fight it back, you can work together. My dough has enough oil on it from the previous stage, so I don't need to oil this tray right now. So I'm going to allow this to proof, cover it down with a kitchen towel once again, and just let it rest. All right, so our baguette has been proofing and it is about ready. So we're going to score it to get some lines in there, and that's going to go into the oven. Added to that, what we're going to do is add a container with hot water, so that actually steams in the oven, adds more moisture, and helps with the baking of the bread without it getting too dry. So I'm going to go in here with the oven. And this oven is preheated to 400 degrees. I already have my water hot over here. And the same way it's steaming over here is going to steam in that oven. And it goes on the base. While that is happening, we're going back to our liver over here, and that is going to go into the food processor. Because now it has completely cooled. So our cooked liver with the onions and garlic and everything will now become and made into a paste, or pate, and that's where the name comes from. We have some extra butter that we will add if needed, but for now let's blitz it and see if it's needed at all. this point, we're gonna fold in some cold butter. I may not need as much as this, so I'll just break it in half and fold that in there. And this entire thing will go into the fridge to chill and set. Now that that is setting in the fridge, we're gonna make a sorrel glaze, and I'm using kitsch mix sorrel for that. We have some fresh garlic as well and some salt. Now that's gonna add another dimension to the finished product of the chicken liver pate. So we're gonna grab ourselves a pan. This goes directly inside. We wanna reduce this down because we wanna get that consistency and that stronger sorrel flavor. In goes garlic. Mix in savory and sweet flavors. And a touch of salt. And we let that simmer. All the elements are coming together. In the fridge, we have the chicken liver pate setting. This is just about to simmer. We want that to reduce down to a nice syrup consistency, and the baguette is in the oven. So when all this is done, it's going to be a culmination on the plate, and I can't wait to show you the finished product. All right, and now it's time for my favorite part, plating. So we start off with some fresh baguette that I made. But remember, you don't have to go through all that. You could go buy a baguette. You can go to Food Hall, for instance. They have some nice fresh baguette there as well. But we're gonna start off with some nice slices of the baguette here. Look at that. Look at that sponge. I'm going with 3 because 3 looks better on a plate. Odd numbers look better on a plate than even numbers. That's a little plating tip there for you. Next step is the chicken liver pate. We want like a nice generous helping on there. And I know some people thinking chicken liver, how that's gonna taste like. Trust me, by the time we get this all together, you'll be making chicken liver pate home as well. Next up comes the pickled onions. It's a nice sweet pickle. So it's adding tartness, it's adding sweetness as well, and there's some salt in there, so it adds a savory element. And yeah, let's make the plate look a little nicer here, because the final step now with this is the sorrel glaze. And again, adding more dimensions of flavor, sweetness, that pungency of the garlic, just adding so many layers of flavor and just different elements to brighten your plate, have your palate go through an exploration or a journey. So as you come to the end of the episode, don't sleep on scraps. What one man may find as trash, another may find as a treasure. And if you cook it right, nothing does waste here. So tune in next time to find out what is cooking in Khary's kitchen. In the meantime though, I'm gonna taste this. We win.
How was it? How was it?
It was good.
Khary's Kitchen, powered by Food Hall. Grocery made greater. Ibis, a tradition of excellence. Caribbean flavors. In the heart of every kitchen. Lotus, the confidence to create. Correga Garden Supplies. Good and natural. Indie, spice up your life. Distributed by Edward B.B. Harry. Champion, always a winner. Distributed by Edward B.B. Harry. Lion, the power behind our great taste traditions. Excellence Stores Limited. Live, create, do.